says Ship Chandler's Warehouse. So this tells you a little bit about where this city was at by the time you get to the 15 and 1600s. By the time you get to the 15 and 1600s, this city was a massive trading city. In fact, in the late 1500s, they even put out a little brochure, and the brochure just said, Amsterdam, Emporium of the World. Now, Emporium is an interesting English word, but basically it means like the store where you can get everything. So it's like saying Amsterdam, the eBay of the world. Now, most of you may already know this, but this tells you a little bit about the geography of these buildings. Every Amsterdam central building is built on the same format, and the format is ground floor, that's where the family lives. Below the ground, that was the warehouse, that's where the servants would work on, making barrels for goods. All the top layers, that was your warehouse. So again, you get this independent thing. It wasn't massive companies, it was every family running their own business. And in their business, they would live, they would work. This is also why you get these things at the top of the buildings, the hooks, because you would bring a boat along here, the boat would park up, you would take your goods off, and then you would put it on the hook and you take it up to the higher levels. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things about capitalism, regulation and deregulation, because Amsterdam has examples of both. So how many of you here work in the financial sector?
Or economics?
I've got a few of you in the financial sector. Well, I'm going to firstly say something about the value of complete deregulation. Now, one of the great values about having this kind of Wild West situation in Amsterdam of kind of saying everybody's got their own independent thing is that you allowed massive innovation. So what you actually had is you had things like, they started off being fishermen. They then innovated, and with boats, arguably no bigger than this one, but an entirely different shape. I normally do this story in a different canal. They went out to sea and they invented this way of pickling herring for Hollands haring. Yeah? So if you think about the early economy of Amsterdam, it is built on haring. In fact, it's one of the first examples in the world of branding. They used to put on the barrel a stamp that said Hollands haring, and then they'd sell it around Europe, so you knew you're getting decent herring, you're getting Hollands haring. Is my pronunciation terrible there?
No,
it's okay,
not
good.
bad.
So when you have people in the city sort of saying, oh, we hate McDonald's coming in, we hate all of these big stores, actually, Amsterdammers, sorry, but we kind of started this whole thing of branding products to get a good value. But once they started doing this, they then realised, hey, we want to build boats. So they started trading with Norway. Now, you get all these logs from Norway, that's very good to put on the houses, to make the houses big. But then Amsterdam also had a massive advantage in making boats. Can anybody guess what it is?
Tulip bulbs.
Not tulip bulbs, we'll
joking.
talk about tulip bulbs later.
I'm joking.
A lot of water, not a lot of people to sell them to, windmills.
Yeah.
Windmills, because they use windmills for the polders, but then once you realise you can use a windmill to drain something, then you can use a windmill to attach to a saw. And if you can use a windmill to attach to a saw, you can cut wood a lot faster than somebody can with their hand. So again, you've got this sense of like, because you allowed people to be innovative, trade starts to boost. Amazingly for you guys as churchgoers as well, there's a really interesting parallel between China and the Netherlands. Well, China and Europe, arguably. In China, they had windmills just exactly the same time. In the early 1000s, they had windmills in China. Primarily used them for turning Buddhist prayer wheels. The Bishop of Ghent saw the windmill, and he said, we should employ the windmill to make the suffering of work less. Because Adam was meant to work, but he wasn't meant to do work that was too toilsome. And so actually, they deliberately, as bishops, who said, we're also going to use innovation to make the lives of people better, and we're going to do that because we believe in the Bible. Which I think is a great illustration as well of how like the Bible then came into this whole trade thing. Any Americans here? Americans, this is a good story for you. This over here is called the Schreierstoren. You may have noticed as you walked past. It basically means the corner tower, although some people call it the weeping tower, because Schreier sounds kind of like weeping. As you went past, you may have seen that a certain person left from here called Henry Hudson. And if you want to take a photo of the plaque, you can later. Henry Hudson left this tower and he went off to try and find a northern passage towards China. Well, he didn't find it, but he did discover the Hudson River. And by the Hudson River was a little island, and the island had on it a group of people called the Mannahatta. And the Mannahatta were met by Hudson and his Dutch friends, and a Dutch man called Peter Minuit managed to persuade the Mannahatta to sell their island for $24. And so for $24, they bought Manhattan. And they of course thought, well, we'll put a settlement here, and what will we call the settlement? We'll call it New Amsterdam. And so they called it New Amsterdam, and it in fact was built on the same principles. So if I start to talk to you about principles of free trade, and I don't talk about the stock market, freedom of religion, you want to know where that all comes from? That all comes from the Pilgrim Fathers coming down to that shore of America, and also from these guys from Amsterdam going off to found New Amsterdam. I won't mention the fact to you Dutch people that then the Dutch and the English had a war. To be honest, you absolutely whooped us. Any of you who know the story, you kind of went over. We had these wars in the 1660s and 1670s. Did went down. He captured the king's ship, but somehow or other there was a deal where we the English kind of lost the war, but the Dutch went, I tell you what, if you give us Sri Lanka, we'll give you that thing called New Amsterdam. It doesn't really matter anyway. And we said, for sure, we'll name it after the king's brother. And the king's brother was the Duke of York, so then it became New York. So that was a Suriname.
Suriname, yeah.
Suriname. Okay.